Affirmative action lowers standards by definition.
I'm saying why affirmative action was introduced. I'm not arguing for it.
Were you asking me why it was introduced, or?
No, I'm saying you agree that's why it was introduced.
Well, I agree why it was. I don't think it ever should have been, but yes.
Right,
I mean,
but there is institutional inequality, yes?
Well, I wouldn't even use the word inequality. I mean, I don't love looking at it that way, but of course, white people generally are richer than black people in this country.
Richer and more represented in politics and schools, yes?
Somewhat yes and no.
Why do you think that is, Charlie?
Well, hold on a second. Let's ask the question here. Represented how? So, I mean...
Look at Congressman.
So, no, hold on a second. Are white people represented fairly in the National Basketball Association?
Who cares? What political power does the
Hold on, I thought we're all
national...
about fair representation.
Listen.
I think that it should, by law, half of the NBA should be white.
Great, fine.
And the product would suck.
Lobby for it.
Because
I don't
blacks
care.
are much better at basketball than we whites are.
What political power does the NBA have?
A lot, actually. The NBA reaches millions of people every day. They have slogans that people internalize. In fact, if the NBA had no political power, why would they have to wear Black Lives Matter on all their jerseys? Why would why would politicians try to get their endorsements all the time? The NBA is more powerful than Congress in some ways.
What's up, YouTube? Hope you guys are feeling good. Today, guys, we're back here on a new video. Today, we're going to be checking out Charlie Kirk. This is Best of Charlie Kirk Part 2. This is going to be amazing. I would love to check it out, you guys. I call him Charlie Kick because he loves kicking us. Let's get right into today's video.
Hey, Charlie. I was told to keep it short, so I will. So you touched on LGBTQ rights a lot. You've talked about,
Yeah, we'll go
trans
again.
bathrooms. You getting banned from Twitter. Very, awful. But I'm wondering if I can get a straight answer, yes or no. Do you think the acceptance of queer people in society is a good thing?
Well, define acceptance and define queer, because when I grew up, that was like a slander. So, I don't know, that's like a thing now.
Queer being lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and what was the other word you asked me to
What do you mean
define?
acceptance? What do you mean?
Acceptance being that, society, accepts that, doesn't try to change that, doesn't try to say that it's not a social, like it's not a good thing for you to be gay, it's not a good thing for you to be trans, and in our institutions also just offering them resources to, just come to terms with their sexuality, not feel bad about it. Basically, by acceptance, I generally mean society shouldn't make people feel bad about who they are. So, do you agree with that?
No. I mean, we should feel bad about all sorts of things. So, I mean, yeah, happy to get the mic back up. But, I mean, I'll just ask you a very simple question, and this will tell, what is a woman?
A woman is someone who identifies as a woman.
Got it. So, so do you think a definition of someone able to become pregnant would be a woman?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
So if someone can become pregnant, would that person be defined as a woman?
Depends on if they identify as a woman.
Right. So, okay, we're now getting to the root of the issue. So do you believe that truth is objective or subjective? Do you believe in absolute truth?
Sure.
Okay, so if you believe in absolute truth, shouldn't we have absolute terms of what a infant-bearing or infant-birthing person is, otherwise known as a woman?
No.
Okay, so let me ask you this a different way, I suppose. So if anyone can identify at anything at any time, correct?
Anyone can identify
As a woman or a man, you can just choose at any time, right?
gender. Well,
Sure.
Gender identity isn't switching genders all the time. It just depends.
But that's your position, right? That's fair to say that you could change your gender.
My position is that you should accept people's gender identity, and you shouldn't try to shame them out
So
of it.
let me ask you: should we accept people that think they're younger than they actually are? Because that's a mental condition where people say, I identify as an 8-year-old, but they're really 50. Should we accept someone be able to say they're younger?
No, but I think that's a very false equivalence.
Why is it a false equivalence?
Because there's scientific research supporting that gender identity is something that is, there's scientific research that supports people and says that if you identify as a certain gender, then that is, your gender. There's this paper on Scientific American that I found very interesting that said, it has to do with, your brain formation in the womb, where gender identity forms, but it's different from sex. That's very different from a disorder where you say, I'm not actually my age, because...
Well, hold on. You just agreed with me. You said it's a brain formation issue. It's a brain formation...
I didn't say it was a disorder.
Well, so you don't think transgenderism is a disorder?
No.
What is gender dysphoria?
Gender dysphoria is when you're very uncomfortable with your own body, and that usually relates to gender, and that can usually be treated if you choose a transition to...
Right, so it's a mental condition, right?
Gender dysphoria is, but
Okay.
transgenderism is not.
What's the difference?
The difference between gender dysphoria and transgenderism? Being transgender means that you don't identify with the gender you're born with. Gender dysphoria means you're uncomfortable with your body. So they're two different things.
No, so you cannot be
They're the
quote unquote transgender without suffering from gender dysphoria. So let me ask you one more question. So you believe that we can dictate pronouns. Can I choose my adjectives? Can I decide to be like super rich? Or like, can I decide to be small? Like, is there anything objective that we have to actually admit? Or can you just change anything at any time?
I think people should have the right to determine their pronouns. And I don't think
No, how about adjectives?
I don't think people actually do that, so I don't know why that's something you're...
Well, of course, like if someone says, I declare I'm rich, is no longer than saying I'm declare I'm a man. Your chromosomes aren't that way. You don't get to choose what your reality is, do you?
Gender identity is reality.
Okay, so anyone could be anything. Let me ask, how about species reality? Can I change my species?
No. Of course
Why?
not.
There's people that identify as cats and dogs all the time. It's a serious mental
That's
condition.
true.
It is. It's treated all the time. Tens
Yeah.
of thousands of cases every single year. So basically, if you believe in absolute truth, which you say you do, why wouldn't you believe in absolute truth when it comes to chromosomal structure?
Because gender and chromosomal sex are two different things.
That's right, according to your opinion. Got it. So,
Okay,
but now,
that's
now you want to
actually-
impose that opinion on the rest of society, right? You can have whatever opinion you want. Here's our position. That opinion should now not apply to all of a sudden saying that men and women's sports should be conflated. Final question. Did you find a moral problem with the University of Pennsylvania swimmer changing from a man to a woman and winning the NCAA championship, defeating other women?
Well, I'm not familiar, but I'm pretty sure that the NCAA has some rules that makes it so people who transition have, like, kind of a competitive, fair thing. So I haven't done much research into those rules, but
Yeah, okay, so
usually they
let
make
me
it
catch
so...
you up to speed. 462nd best male swimmer, best female swimmer, NCAA champion. Do you see a problem with that?
Are you suggesting that she transitioned to a woman to get better at swimming?
Of course.
Yes.
And we shouldn't allow that to happen.
Why would you
because
transition yourself just to become better at a sport? Who does
Because
that?
you're a narcissist. That's why. Because it's like saying, why would anyone steal anything? Why would anyone cut in line? People do bad things. It's not up to us as society to accommodate the rules for your impulses to go do bad things. Last question. Do you think there's differences between men and women?
Was this the actual last question?
Yeah, last. I'm curious. No, I'm curious because I can't believe you're paying for this. It's like so interesting.
Well, there are actual differences between men and women, yes, in terms of, chromosomes, as you mentioned. So, yeah, sure.
Okay, so therefore we agree that men and women have differences. We should define society around those differences. And one of those differences is that women they have lower testosterone levels, and they could be easily exploited by men, which is what happens far too often. And it's incumbent on men who have higher testosterone levels, who are physically stronger, to protect women against the exploitation of men who think they are women. That's a moral question and a moral claim. Thank you for being here tonight. I appreciate it.
How do you feel about the current state of the economy and this whole theory of immaculate disinflation? If you're familiar with the term,
Say that again.
immaculate disinflation.
Well, we're not living through that.
Okay,
But
yeah.
yes.
And where's your proof that we aren't exactly?
Are you talking disinflation?
Yes.
That we actually we're not seeing a surge in prices?
No, disinflation means the inflation rate is decreasing over time.
Well, so there is some evidence to show that, for example, televisions, iPhones.
Specific products. That's not an illustration of all of inflation, though.
No, I was going to agree with you that.
Okay.
But if you just go to a grocery store, eggs are far more expensive than they were 2 years ago. You don't have to overthink it. I mean, the college degree here at this university, what is it per year, guys?
30,000.
How much?
They've been
10 in state, 30,000 out of state. Yeah, 10 years ago, I bet it was 18,000 out of state, right? So
Yes, but they've been trying to raise the Cal State tuition for quite some time, even before inflation spiked to its current levels or previous levels about a year ago. They've just been delaying it for quite some time. So
yeah,
it's not
I mean,
exactly.
We're living through a decades-long inflation surge, and
true.
The best evidence you could see it either in the artificial boosting of profit-earning
But even-
ratios. Go ahead.
Even during Trump's administration, inflation was actually quite low, so that's not
No, it was low then,
necessarily
but
true.
it's not low right now.
Yes, but why was it low then, would you say?
Well, because we had economic growth, and we weren't borrowing $2 to $3 trillion a
We
year.
actually were. We were borrowing quite a bit of money.
We were borrowing about $1 trillion a year.
Still quite a bit.
So we're borrowing about triple that right now.
Yes.
Do you agree?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
got it.
I mean, I think that's how the math works
so
out.
triple in the law of big numbers is a big deal. So
Mm-hmm.
borrowing 800 billion, not excusable. Borrowing 2.5 trillion, morally reprehensible.
Morally, why exactly morally is there
Well,
a distinction between 1 and 3 trillion? Very arbitrary.
Because
guys.
everyone here is going to have to pay off that debt, and that dollar that you think is going to have value is decreasing by the day. Whether you're pro-choice or Democrat.
But inflation is something that's going to occur
can
no
I-
matter what.
Can I
Sorry.
finish? Okay.
I apologize.
It's okay. Inflation is not a guaranteed human norm. That's not true, but I'll get to that in a second. Every single person here, it will be harder than ever for you to own a home. So inflation is immoral because you're going to enter into a housing market where everything costs 3 times as much in the housing market than it did a decade ago. You will not be able to afford a down payment, let alone even be able to build the capital necessary
True.
for other goods and services that you
True.
might want to build wealth. And you know who does benefit is your parents' generation and baby boomers, no
True.
offense, that
True.
do own their assets and you won't. And so, secondly, inflation is a choice. It's not built into the human experience.
The human experience, sure, but the economic system, especially a capitalist economic system, it definitely is. How would you
it
try
depends
to
how you build a
achieve
central
0%
bank. Yeah,
inflation?
0% inflation?
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't want 0%.
So then it is built in,
Inflation.
and it is a necessary evil.
No, I said I wouldn't want it.
Okay.
Moderate inflation is good for money velocity and for growth.
Yes.
But you need to manage that versus the growth rate, right? So
Yes.
this goes back to Milton Friedman's idea of the Chicago monetarism. You can laugh all you want.
Friedman? Yeah, all right. Okay.
What's so funny about Milton Friedman? The fact he's the greatest economist of the 20th century, or
Qualify. That's I don't know. I wouldn't say he's exactly that.
so you're more like a John
I respect your
John
opinion.
Maynard Keynes guy? So yeah.
Not necessarily.
Okay,
No.
but-
I just take a more broad approach than
Okay, so
specifically
we
Milton
don't
Friedman.
need to have a central bank. We do have a central bank.
Okay. Bold claim. I'll follow you though. I'll follow
You don't need to have a central
I
bank.
used to be very against the Federal Reserve as well.
Okay, I'm just saying you don't need to have one, but
Okay.
we choose to have one. The central bank has been overly politicized to try to stop, let's just say, natural economic cycles from occurring. Both administrations, Bush, Obama, Trump, Biden, have
Okay.
leaned on the central bank to use cheap money as a way
Yeah.
to try to keep
Okay.
the good times flowing and the good times going.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's
so-
definitely for sure.
So we don't agree. Well, we don't disagree.
Yeah, but here's the other thing I would say.
I gotta say, your protesters are kind of weak here, guys. I
Aren't they?
expected more
Aren't
out of
they?
them, right?
They didn't seem to have the energy to get
I
all
know.
in
I
front.
thought they'd have more, Yeah, I like it. Please keep going, yeah.
I will say though, going back to the mortgage rates, as you were saying, I would say that probably has a lot more to do with private equity buying up homes than the inflation rate.
Well, hold on. There's 2 parts to that. I'm not talking
Okay.
just about mortgage. Interest rates are up. I'm talking about just the asset price itself.
That too, I would say it's a lot more related to private equity buying up homes.
But why is private equity doing that? Because they have so much cheap money that we've put into the system, they don't know what to do with it. Now, I think we could agree, actually, there should be laws against BlackRock coming in and buying single-family homes and renting them back. You should not be a society of renters. It's bad for society.
Yes.
So we can agree on that. I say
yes,
that as a
for sure.
conservative. It's bad for the human experience
Good,
and for
yeah.
generational flourishing. But when you open up the guzzle of cheap money, which we have done, especially
Yes.
post-COVID,
So-
there's a price to that. And the price is that your
yeah.
currency gets weaker.
Okay.
And we're seeing that right now.
Yes. So would you say that it was actually necessary in order to get out of the huge recession we experienced during the pandemic, to...
No, I think we should have just opened up the economy. We never should have locked down the country.
Okay.
So we never should have borrowed the $6 trillion. We never should have done the stimulus stuff. It
So-
hurt every single one of you. It increased suicide rates, depression, anxiety, fiscal problems, economic problems, political problems.
I could definitely agree with that to some extent. But would you say even in, say, 2009, lowering the interest rates to 0 in that sense, was that
Well, we didn't go to
necessary?
0. We didn't. We went down, believe it or
okay.
not. We went to like 5%. COVID, we went to like near 0.
Yes.
But no, I have a contrarian view on 2008. I think we should have let the banks fail.
Ooh,
And
okay.
I think we should have. I think we actually should have allowed the market to solve it, not to
Okay.
have socialism for the rich and
You know what?
brutal,
Yes.
brutal capitalism for the working
I
class.
totally agree with that.
Okay, so
Totally agree with
I
that.
think that Wells Fargo, Goldman, I think that Lehman and the big banks that failed should have had to actually
Okay.
climb themselves out, or you destroyed a moral hazard,
Yeah.
is what you did, and 0 executives went to prison. I agree
Okay,
with Elizabeth
yeah.
Warren on this. None of these robber barons that did what they did in 08 served federal prison time. Meanwhile, and I will use a political statement to contrast it, grandmas that went into the Capitol on January 6th and took selfie videos are in federal prison. You ask me who's a bigger threat to democracy? Wall Street executives that bankrupted our economy in 2008 are a bigger threat to our country than people
Now,
that walked into the Capitol building and took a selfie.
Now, let me ask you this. I don't know if my memory served me correctly, but who was... did Steve Mnuchin serve under the Trump administration?
Yeah, he was from Government Sachs.
Did he serve under the Trump administration?
That's right, yeah.
So why would Trump invite someone like that who should probably be in federal prison into his administration?
I have a lot of personnel disagreements. I love Trump, but I think
You love Trump?
Love Trump.
Why would you love? Why would? So
Do we love Trump, everybody?
so to ask a broader question,
Yes.
why would you love any politician? They have a job to do. Why be emotionally attached in that sense?
And I don't say this like lightly. I do have a friendship with him. I've gotten to know him over a couple of years.
Okay.
So
And
I
disclosing bias.
100% biased. And
Good.
so I also think whether you hate him or love him, he's a once in 100 year.
But why would you hate him or love him? He just has a job to do.
Well,
right?
I also love what he did as country.
Okay.
As
Thank
president
you.
for the
Okay.
country. So.
Would you say though that you're probably more of a fiscal conservative?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I probably his borrowing was one of the two. So 3 things, if you want to just be full disclosure,
Yeah.
that I think President Trump could have done better, and I think he will do better. Fiscal deficit spending, okay?
Why do you think he will do better?
Let me get to all 3, okay?
Okay.
COVID and certain personnel choices, okay?
Okay.
Those are the 3 things, and
Okay.
and I could list 100 accomplishments. Those are 3 things I think that the first administration, that wasn't their best.
Yeah.
Why it could have been better? I think that he's got the world against him, and if he becomes president again, which the 50-50 shot he will,
has become the
he's
president
going to
already.
set the world on fire.
I would say he's a little bit too egotistical and emotional to really counter the world being against him. He seems to react a little too emotionally to these kinds of things.
I don't want to get too deep into it, but you're not gonna convince me on negative Trump stuff. So
Okay, interesting. So your mind isn't necessarily that open. Isn't this change my mind?
you could try.
Okay.
I mean, you're not gonna.
But didn't you just say kind of up front that you're not
I mean,
really
I'm
gonna change
open-minded to
your
hear it. I'm
opinion?
just saying you're not going to change my mind on that
Okay.
stuff.
Okay. So then, what is it that's leading you to think that Trump is going to have better decision making in this next term, specifically when it comes to borrowing? Because he is
Probably
going
at a
to.
necessity. I mean, I don't know, and honestly,
Okay.
there's
Okay.
little evidence except the fact that
Just a little intuition.
we're going to have a debt crisis, the likes of which the country's never seen, and he's going to have to address it. We need to have severe cuts in the federal budget. We need
Okay.
to quickly-
So would you say that the downgrading of America's credit rating is more related to our national debt or the inability to handle it in a mature way?
more both, but more just the debt itself is.
Okay.
I mean, we now owe more than we're worth as a country. So I want to get to other questions because you had
Okay.
some time. But final
Perfect.
question. I want to be respectful, but.
So I guess if you think that that's an issue that we have more debt than say our current income?
Well, we do.
Well, yeah, but if you would
just
say
the value of the country.
of course, we control our own currency, and our currency is
Yeah. Are you a
the
modern
number one
monetary theory
reserve
guy? So.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so-
It's the number one reserve, so that gives us a lot of wiggle room.
It's decreasing. It used to be 75% of the world's reserve currency status 20 years ago. Now it's 55%.
I would say
Do you know
a lot-
about BRICS? You know BRICS, right? BRICS.
Yeah, I do.
BRICS is creating an alternative.
I think they're a paper
dollar.
tiger.
Okay. I actually hope you're right.
I don't believe
I
that
hope you're right.
India, China, South Africa, and Russia could ever work together to create their own
I hope you're right.
unified currency.
I just hope we're not too prideful.
Definitely a paper tiger.
Thank you. So
Have
let
you?
me ask you a question. So in the CRT literature, what do they think of white people or whiteness?
Who would you like me to quote?
Kimberly Crenshaw.
I haven't read Kimberly
She
Crenshaw.
says that
yet.
whiteness is a cancer or a toxin on our society.
The concept of whiteness, the racial concept of whiteness.
Okay, so what is whiteness?
What is whiteness?
Yeah, define it.
As Kimberly Crenshaw would probably say, the sort of construction of privilege that comes with being white in this country.
Right. So what privilege do you and I as white people have that black people don't
Yeah,
have?
great question. On applications that are blindly judged, white-sounding names are often given the job more. They're paid
Not
more.
true.
That's not true. That's
In
not
fact,
true.
it's the opposite. There's black privilege right now. It's called affirmative action, where underqualified blacks are taking Asians and white people's places in universities across the country. True or false?
Sure, true.
Okay, so yeah, there's black privilege, not white privilege
I
in this
actually
country.
don't think affirmative action is how we address education inequality.
Okay, well, that affirmative action is still largely supported by the CRT regime. But let's get back to CRT, to the essence of it.
Sure.
CRT believes in one manifestation of its ideology is black-only dormitories. So white people are not allowed. Do you believe in black-only dormitories?
No, and I don't have to agree
Okay.
with
No,
every
you're
aspect
being
of an
fair.
ideology
Fine.
to argue for it.
So then what part of CRT do you like? Because they call whiteness a toxin, black-only dormitories, and if you want to talk about like ideological or intellectual sloppiness, the 1619 Project was...
I think it's very sloppy.
Okay, we agree. Nicole
I
Hannah-Jones.
think it's overstated, and I think some
You're
of parts
being
are
fair.
inaccurate.
Okay, good.
The parts of CRT that I think are most relevant and, very factually, you can, what am I trying to say? There's a lot of evidence for them, is the fact that previous inequalities, such as the institution of slavery, such as our treatment of Native Americans, do in fact affect those populations today. And you were saying before, in inner cities, there's a lot more crime, and a lot of that is because of redlining and other practices that come directly from the mistreatment of minorities previously in this country.
So I want to make sure I understand. So black people make up 13% of the American population.
Oh, 1350, my favorite.
Yes, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Why do they commit 55% of all the murders?
Super great question. It's basically a very complex intersection of race and economic status. It's pretty well known that minority people tend to be in a lower economic status because of discrimination that they face.
So then why don't poor Asians commit a lot of murders?
Also a great question. Asian people weren't originally brought to America on purpose like black people, and they weren't already present here like natives.
Wait,
I'm not finished, please.
so blacks murder because they were brought here 250 years
No,
ago?
I would like to finish.
Okay, just answer. It's very simple. Black
I am
peop-
answering.
No, I know, but you're not really. You're
I
kind
am.
of, okay.
Asian Americans predominantly immigrate here for work reasons. They come from already wealthy countries. They're already wealthy when they get here. Crime is committed primarily
First
by
of all,
poorer
that's not
people.
true. Talk to anybody from Who's a Vietnamese? Anybody? Did your family come here wealthy?
No.
Yes
Not
and
wealthy,
no. Okay.
but not. I'm
Yes
not
or
saying
no?
they come
No.
here. Okay.
The average Vietnamese does not come here wealthy.
I'm not. Okay. I perhaps misspoke. Not wealthy, but a lot of the. You complain about it all the time. A lot of the immigration from countries that border us, right? It's sort of desperate people who are of a lower economic status, right? And they're coming here for a better life.
So two things. Number one, there's been more blacks that have legally immigrated to this country in the last 30 years than were ever brought as slaves. That's number one. Number two, you still haven't answered the question.
I'm trying
But
to.
why?
It's a complicated answer.
Black people are only 13% of the population, yet they commit 55% of the murders. Why?
Because black people tend to be in lower economic statuses because of
Okay, no, this is
CRT,
fine. This is great.
Basically,
So you think that poverty equals crime?
I think that it's highly correlated, and there's a lot of studies
This is where
on
we
that.
disagree. What an insult to the working poor of
So
this
why
country.
do you think black people commit more
Well,
crime,
first of
Charlie
all,
Kirk?
so how? Let me ask you a question as
No,
my
answer it. Go on.
What percentage of blacks have a father around when they're raised?
I'm not sure.
20%.
So that's why you
80% of
think it
blacks
is.
do not have a stable father around. It is the most predictable way to end up in prison, end up as a murderer or a criminal.
And why
It's
do
not a
you think that's
racism
a problem?
It's not a white supremacy problem. It's a fact that black fathers impregnate women and they don't stay around with the women
And
that they have
why-
impregnated.
Charlie Kirk, do you think that happens more in the black community compared to others?
It's threefold. Number one, we subsidize single motherhood. Number two, it's culture. It's accepted in the black community, and it
so
shouldn't
it's
be.
culture. Okay.
Don't take my
I
word
see.
for it. Read Thomas Sowell's own book on how black culture allows single motherhood to continue into a nanny state type practice. 75% of black youth are raised without a father in the home. 75%. Is that a bigger problem or not a bigger problem than whiteness, white privilege, or white supremacy? How
They
can
should
you
all
blame?
be addressed, and they're all related.
Okay, how is a white person to blame for the fact that 75% of blacks?
Oh, individual white people aren't at all to blame.
Okay, we agree.
Yeah.
So, but wouldn't it be more smarter to be like, hey, that this is not about systemic racism. Like, stop impregnating your women and abandoning them.
Well, the way to incentivize not impregnating women and abandoning them is increasing access to healthcare, into housing, into everything that we know increases those outcomes for people.
So we have spent $30 trillion on the social welfare system since 1965. Black people are poorer, and the single motherhood went from 25% to now 75 to 80%. So the more money we've spent on black America, the less fathers we have, because black women divorced black men and married the government.
Governments.
And do you think that's a problem inherent to black people?
No, it's not. It's happening now in white communities and Hispanic communities. It's just the worst in black America.
And why do you think that is?
Why is it the worst in black America? There's also a cultural problem. There is, and we have to be honest about it.
It's just that black people are
No, let me ask you a question.
Like
The average music that a black person in Compton is listening to, is it about contemplating the good, the true, and the beautiful, or is it about being a gangbanger and trying to get as much money and sleep with about as many girls as you can?
I would actually like to think I would be offended by that.
Do you think the average black kid in Compton is listening to Beethoven or some sort of gangster rap music that glorifies gangster culture?
Silly question. Rap wasn't created to glorify gangster culture. So even though there is rap, I'm sure that's doing that.
You're dodging the question because...
Okay, I'm sure they're listening to rap.
Okay.
So you think rap music makes them leave their mom?
Do you think the cultural expectation in black America is that you stay with the woman that you impregnate?
Within black communities? I can't speak on that.
Okay, the answer is no. It's not. It's not expected.
Okay, and do you think that is...
Hold on. In white Anglo-Saxon Protestant communities,
okay.
It's a fact. Hold on. In upper middle class white communities...
Upper middle class. Say that part louder.
Yeah, upper middle class white Anglo-Saxon Protestant communities, if you impregnate a woman, you are looked down upon and we do not think highly of you if you abandon the woman that you impregnate. Mm-hmm. That's a cultural difference. Has nothing to do with money. Has nothing to do with anything except norms. And the norms that have infected black America are destroying it from within. We need more fathers, not less. We need more dads around and less drag queen story hour. We need more young blacks to be able to look up to role models that are not leaving all the time and are not just saying, hey, I impregnated her, so be it. It's a toxin, and if we don't address that as the root cause, it's white supremacy, it's injustice, it's economics, we're dancing around the core of the issue.
I guess what I'm saying is, right, and you've perfectly actually laid out the dichotomy here. It is a fact, obviously, that black people disproportionately commit crime in this country. No one's arguing that. But you either believe that that is due to a complex intersection of social, economic, and leftover effects from previous inequalities, or you believe that that is an inherent trait to the race.
No, I don't. Because they weren't that way in the 1940s and 50s. Black America was one of the most peaceful, flourishing, fastest growing economically communities in the country. It's not genetic. You're trying to point something on me that I don't believe. Instead,
but then
Black
you do
America,
believe that it's not genetic, so you do think CRT is correct.
Hold on a second.
That's kind of what I'm getting at.
In the 1940s and 1950s, Black America was prosperous and was on pace to be richer and wealthier than white America. More dads were staying with the women that they were with. There was monogamy. What changed?
You're supporting my argument.
No, hold on. But answer the question. What changed? Did America get more racist since the 1950s?
I would argue there were more racist policies passed. There were more policies dedicated to lining off those communities and pushing them into poor housing and poor schools.
Wait a second. In the 1950s, Jackie Robinson had not even broken the color barrier. We had Jim Crow laws. We hadn't passed the Civil Rights Act, and we hadn't passed the Voting Rights Act. Yet blacks were better in the 1950s per capita than they are today. So we have become less racist. We've passed more anti-racist laws and given more stuff, and blacks are worse than they were 70 years ago.
Yeah.
Why?
So you're equating here institutional and social racism. Social racism was certainly worse in the 1950s, I'm sure everyone would agree, but institutional racism occurs when policies are passed against people.
Come on.
Which can increase over time, and it did.
You're not being intellectually honest. You know that. There was black-only drinking fountains in the 1950s. We don't have those anymore. Well, we're bringing them back with, black-only dormitories. But we had, for example, in the antebellum South in the 1950s, we had white-only communities, by law. We got rid of that with the Civil Rights Act. But it didn't, unfortunately, we look around, the numbers speak for themselves. Black youth are less likely to have fathers. They're not doing as well as far as economically. They commit more crime. So something changed. And our argument is what changed is three things. Number one, the imposition of the Great Society Project by Lyndon Baines Johnson of spending $30 trillion since 1960s on Section 8 housing, on welfare, on all sorts, where, as I said, that young black women married the government and they divorced young black men. And then we also have had as Thomas Sowell and as Clarence Thomas would say, the soft bigotry of low expectations. And we have been afraid to get to the root of the issue or even speak about it because we don't want to be called a racist.
So what is imposing those low expectations?
Part of it is like white academic culture. I'll give you an example. I'm not saying you believe this, but Merrick Garland, the Attorney General of the United States, has come out and said having an ID to vote is racist. That is code for saying black people are too dumb to get a voter ID.
You're doing it again. You're simplifying a very nuanced, complex argument from the real people who are making it.
Is voter ID racist?
Obviously not, Charlie.
Okay, all right.
Do you want to know where the argument comes from? I can eloquently tell you.
Eloquently tell me why voter ID is racist or whatever.
Certain policies in southern states were proposed that would, like, I think the quote from the person who decided the case was, with surgical precision, target the times where black people were voting and make it like illegal or harder for them to get that to come at that time. And then they were targeting the type of ID that black voters had and making that specific type of ID illegal. That is racist.
Perfectly fair. How does that impact today, saying that every citizen, if you need an ID to vote, just that aside, why is it racist?
Because we have to have, obviously humans are making those decisions, right? And so if there is still institutional racism and people in power that are racist, we can't trust those institutions to make those decisions without discriminating
What institutional
against
racism do we
people.
have in this country right now?
What you just named it.
What?
1350.
Okay, well, I mean,
affirmative action needs to happen because there is not that many minorities in these higher educations or higher education institutions.
Okay, so you're being clear, which is then you lower standards.
No.
Affirmative action always does. Affirmative action lowers standards by definition.
I'm saying why affirmative action was introduced. I'm not arguing for it.
Were you asking me why it was introduced, or?
No, I'm saying you agree that's why it was introduced.
Well, I agree why it was. I don't think it ever should have been, but yes.
Right,
I mean,
but there is institutional inequality, yes?
Well, I wouldn't even use the word inequality. I mean, I don't love looking at it that way, but of course, white people generally are richer than black people in this country.
Richer and more represented in politics and schools, yes?
Somewhat yes and no.
Why do you think that is, Charlie?
Well, hold on a second. Let's ask the question here. Represented how? So, I mean...
Look at Congressman.
So, no, hold on a second. Are white people represented fairly in the National Basketball Association?
Who cares? What political
Hold on,
power
I
does
thought
the
we're all
national...
about fair representation.
Listen.
I think that it should, by law, half of the NBA should be white.
Great, fine.
And the product would suck.
Lobby for it.
Because
I don't
blacks
care.
are much better at basketball than we whites are.
What political power does the NBA have?
A lot, actually. The NBA reaches millions of people every day. They have slogans that people internalize. In fact, if the NBA had no political power, why would they have to wear Black Lives Matter on all their jerseys? Why would politicians try to get their endorsements all the time? The NBA is more powerful than Congress in some ways of shaping the minds.
It's your turn to be academically dishonest.
Hold on
now,
a second.
But sure.
No. But if you want fair representation, just to be clear, then why would you not be against whites by law being half of the National Basketball Association? Right now, black people make up 88% of the NBA.
Do it, great. Who cares?
No,
I don't care. I'm saying,
okay.
Right, so here's my point.
All right, fine. I have a shot, everybody.
Please listen.
I could play for the Lakers.
I hope... Do it, Charlie. I'll come to your games. I'll do it.
The point is this, is that merit should triumph over all of it.
Which is awesome. Okay, so merit should triumph. We agree.
Okay.
Okay, Charlie, do you think black people are not as smart or competent
Absolutely
as white
not.
people?
No.
Perfect. So they should, in theory, then be equally represented in positions of power.
Hold on. So have you ever read Discrimination and Disparities by Thomas Sowell?
Do you only read Thomas Sowell? You've quoted him like 3 times. I haven't read that.
No, I read a lot more than Thomas Sowell, but I'm happy to. Thomas Sowell's the only intellectual with the courage to go after like these core issues of why Black America has fallen behind and why no one actually has studied it. So let's just give a great example. When you don't have a father in the home, the amount of words that a child hears goes down by 60 to 70%. The amount of words that a child, I don't know if you're a mother or not, or plan to be. Okay. No, just it's an important point. The amount of words that an 18-month-year-old hears is highly predictive of IQ, verbal development. Okay, so that's simple. When you don't have a dad in the home, the mom is overwhelmed and there's just less interaction with the child.
That's all fine.
Okay, so we agree. I'm just saying that's not because of racism.
That's true. Obviously,
no, that's fine.
That's good.
No, she. I know what you meant. But you have a father in the home. All of a sudden, they hear thousands of more words a day, and they're like way further ahead of a single mother raising a child. That's not racism.
Okay, so dads are good. Yes, great.
Okay.
What my question to
I'm saying
you
dads
is,
actually answer most of the questions that you might have about why Black America is falling behind.
okay, but
Because their dads don't stay around, and
I'm
that's
trying
bad.
to sort of get
Go
you to
ahead.
reconcile your own beliefs. And if that's true, which is fine, that's true. We can say that's true. You either believe that has social and economic causes, or you believe that, Black culture's just worse.
No,
and there
I
isn't
think that
another thing to think.
No, I
Those are your
was very
options.
clear. Right now, Black culture is being held captive by influences, songs,
Which
and role models.
influences?
I mean, Nicki Minaj, Cardi B.
Okay, Nicki Minaj is causing dads to leave the home.
Hold on a second. I don't think that's a good role model for 18-year-old Black girls. I don't.
That's true.
I don't think that songs that are talking about like glorifying wet female genitalia is exactly. I don't know which one wrote that song. Which one was it?
I think it was Ben Shapiro.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, but but by the way, the role models of the 1940s and 50s for Black America were completely different.
So
They-
it is a representation issue.
Hold on a second. No, not representation. It's who do you get your art from? It's what values are they putting forward? It's the question of every day. For example, more times than not, Black politicians will lament the condition of America. It's systemically racist. It's terrible. What does that do to a 14-year-old Black kid if you just find that you hear that everything is rigged against you? Instead, they should be saying, hey, there might be some barriers, but if you believe in yourself enough, you can achieve in this country. It creates a form of social conditioning of low expectations.
someone
And
who's
that's
been to
not
a lot
my
of
argument.
colleges.
You know whose argument that is? Barack Obama's.
I don't necessarily agree with
Barack
everything
Obama
you said either, man.
Barack Obama said, number one, we need more fathers in the home. This is when Barack Obama
Barack
didn't go super
Obama's a
woke.
liberal. I don't care what he's got to say.
Okay, but Barack Obama then secondly, he said that we can't keep telling our Black youth that you can't succeed in this country. Anybody can succeed
And
in this
he's-
country. And Obama was right when he said that. Obama was correct when he said that
Right.
we need to change the story we're telling Black America.
Which is fine. I've never heard any teacher look at a Black person and say, "Oh, you can't succeed because of racism."
Hold
Good
on a
luck,
second.
though.
But
Like,
what is the embedded message of all the propaganda saying it's systemically racist, you're going to run into racist employers, that they're going to discriminate against you? It creates this heaviness of why even try?
by the time college
Everything's
students
rigged.
get to college, they've experienced all that. They don't need to be told.
You think that the average? I'm curious. You think that the average Black student at this university experiences like active daily racism? I'd be curious. I'm
I'd
just
have
curious.
to ask.
I mean,
You can ask them to
I
raise
don't know.
their hands
I
if
don't know.
you'd like.
Maybe it's true. Maybe it's as bad as it was in the antebellum South. So
I'm not saying that, obviously.
Okay.
I did say
Fine.
social racism improved. I'm
Okay,
saying
to be
institutional
clear.
racism is still present, and that's what's causing lower outcomes for minority communities.
Do you think the reason why only 20 to 25%, it depends, we don't know the number, it's just a range per year.
Sure.
So 1 in 4 of Black youth have a stable father around. What would you just say is the big, why is that the reason?
A complex intersection of social and economic reasons, which are outlined in CRT.
Okay. Thank you for the dialogue. Thank you.
Okay.
Guys, this entire conversation was actually beautiful to listen to. I enjoyed every single moment of it. So we're going to start from the first guy. The first guy who was here was talking about transgenderism. Who do not know what a woman is. Is anyone who identifies as a woman is a woman, which is a very crazy statement to say. You see, whenever it comes to people who believe all this transgenderism, who believe in LGBTQ, who believe in queer, I kind of like feel like they really don't know what they're talking about. Like, and they are mostly delusional. A lot of them do not have facts about what they're saying. How in the world will we tell anyone who identifies as a woman is a woman? It's a crazy statement to say. If you ask me, it's a very crazy statement. Because you can't tell me that anyone who believes is a woman, who identify as a woman is a woman. It's stupid. A woman is someone who have excess chromosome. It's as simple as that. So a woman is someone who can actually bear another human. That is who a woman is. It's in generation to generation. That is how it has been. You can't come and tell me a woman is anyone who identifies as a woman. It's crazy to say that. You understand? It's very, very crazy. This generation we are in, they're acting in a manner that I feel like, how did these people reason? It's crazy that some people act like that or think like that. So when Charlie put it to him that someone identifies as a woman to go swim, to win the competition just because they want to win. He was shocked by the action. That is how the thing is. Why would someone choose to identify as a woman to go beat other women in swimming competition? It's how we are saying it now. He was surprised. He feels like people should not do that. But that is the generation we are in. These trans people, the queer people, the LGBTQ community, it's a crazy movement. Then if we go to the second guy who talked about inflation, he just came there to argue Charlie because he keeps on cutting Charlie short. Whenever Charlie wants to make a statement, you want to override Charlie, which is a very, very bad thing to do. Listen before you judge. You see, whenever Charlie wants to make a statement, he wants to come around, like he wants to talk before Charlie. You ask him a question, let him speak. You are trying to interrupt him, which is terrible. Inflation have been since every 10 years, every 20 years, things go up in prices, things home increases in prices, everything go up. Grocery go up, everything go up. But there's a way to manage it. There's a way to subsidize it. There's a way to make it much better for the citizen in order to survive and be able to purchase other things. Because this current generation we are in now is really difficult to own a home. During Joe Biden era, it was very difficult because the inflation was massive. The way American borrowed, it was like three times of what Donald Trump borrowed during 2019. It was really, really high. So if we are to talk about inflation as a whole, guys, inflation is way worse now than it was 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, or okay, let me say 6 years ago. It's way worse. You get. So the student right here, he's someone who, I'm sure he supports, I'm sure he's in the left wing and every narrative about him is in the left wing and I just don't want to see Charlie's point of view. He do not support Donald Trump because it feels like Donald Trump is morally wrong because of Donald Trump's history of his sexual life and also his marital life. He feels that Donald Trump is wrong. That is his goddamn business. A good president puts the citizen ahead. A good president do the best for the citizen to triumph in the country. That is what Donald Trump do. Donald Trump always think ahead for the citizen. He's someone who has passed through a lot of challenges, a lot of setbacks, and he chooses to fight strong for America. He do not say, okay, let me think for myself alone and my family. He has enough money. It's not about money. It's not about to impress other people. He's doing it for the betterment of America. Every decision Donald Trump make is for the betterment of America. That's what people choose not to see. Whenever he's made a statement, whenever he apply tariff, whenever he does some certain things, it's for the betterment of America. I know that there are some things he do that me, myself, I do not support in the terms of like, I feel like he should have done more. But at the same time, he's way more better than every other president I've ever seen in America. And that itself gives me that chills and encouragement to move forward as an American and to support them. So, also, when it comes to the last lady who was here, her statement was a bit out of line. Because if you ask me, the reason why blacks are not getting much better is because of the lack of fathers in the home. Every single time it comes to this statement, a lot of blacks, number one, they accept this victim mentality. They just don't want to live that narrative or that scenario, number one. Number two, a lot of blacks have lack of fathers in the home. Like, a lot of them, their fathers are in jail, either their father is dead, either the mother have divorced the dad. Like, a lot of such scenarios, which is very bad because the kids tend to grow up without a father figure, someone who to instruct them or direct them on what to do. I'm not saying mothers don't try, but their way of discipline is way different from a father. That is just what I'm trying to say. And children tend to look how their father is. They tend to kind of like look at the father as a role model. You understand? So if there's a lack of father in the home, it's destabilized the children's life pattern. Not all, I won't say all, but some, majority of them. You understand? And Charlie is trying to point straight to the fact, the reason why a lot of black people are not in that high level. If you put Asians, for example, Asians, they do not destroy that father figure in the home. They believe in father and mother training the child. They believe in that. But right now in America, the government have subsidized single motherhood, which means mothers tend to divorce their husband quickly and take paycheck from the government in order to train their children, which is terrible because a lot of people who do that are coming from black families, are coming from black homes. A lot of them, which is bad. I'm frankly speaking. Affirmative action is even making it more worse. Because in the terms of going to get the job as a black man, they're giving you the rights that you can go get this job because you're black. They are taking some people out and putting you in, which is bad. You are not the best. You are just there because of your skin color. A lot of people who go through things because of affirmative actions are there because of their skin color. A lot of them. Black people are smart. They should write and get good grade and enter into the university, not because of their skin color, but because they merit it. I keep on saying this. It should be because they merit a job. It should be because they merit admission to university, not because of their skin color. You understand? The lady say institutional racism is still existent. It's still existent. Like for me, it's a lie. It's a big fat lie. Institutional racism is not existent. If you say because of the names, if they hear your name is a black name, they won't give you the job. It's a goddamn lie. A lot of black people are entering into big institutions. They are not limited because of their name. It's what you have to offer. Whenever they see that you are there because of your merit, they will accept you. It's not because of your name. This argument have come up several times, and I've seen black people defending it. You understand? Like a lot of people who are in higher institution and they are black, it's just because they deserve to be there, because they work their ass off to be there. It was not because of their race. It was not because of their name. It's not because their surname is this, that. No. If you feel like your name is limiting you, you are just victimized. It's a victim mentality. You are embedding to be your own perspective or vision. It is not your name. You need to work more on yourself. Comment down below what you think about this video. Give us a thumbs up, share this video as many as you can. I love how Charlie handled the entire students in a very respectful manner, and I really appreciate his time and consistency in doing this. It's really admirable, guys. Subscribe to the channel, guys. Give us a thumbs up. Share this video as many as you can, guys. I will see you guys in the next video. Make sure you stay safe.